is Dame going to go? That's another big storyline thread here. But we wanted to start with Draymond Green. And I guess the question I have for you, Evan, is throughout this whole thing, right, this offseason, if you will, hell, we can go back to the punch, because that's kind of where it all started when Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole in the face to start off the season, right before the season. And this dark cloud that it was dubbed by Draymond Green and Steve Kerr after the season that hung over the organization. Well, Jordan Poole's gone. He's in Washington. CP3 is here now. You re-signed Draymond Green. Is this dark cloud all of a sudden just lifted now that the parties at B are, separated, if you will, and Draymond stays and Jordan Poole leaving? Is this dark cloud finally dissipated and it's sunshine, bright and sunny like it is in the East Bay? Too hot, by the way. I hate the heat.
I'm a fan. I do think right now that is a TBD. Like we're going to find out if that dark cloud remains in Golden State next season. But unfortunately, we're not going to know until the games start, because I do think there are a few stones left unturned that the Warriors will have to wrestle with this upcoming season. And it primarily has to do not with the bench, not with Chris Paul, but I do wonder how both the younger players on the Golden State Warriors, specifically Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody, as well as some of the, not Jordan Poole apologists, but players that were closer to Jordan Poole, not named the big three, a la Andrew Wiggins, who shares an agent with him, and Kevon Looney, who is also from his hometown in Milwaukee. I wonder how those four are going to be able to receive Jordan Poole not being on the team, but the way that he exited and the way that Draymond Green has re-entered. I think they're professionals. I think they'll put it behind them, and I do believe that they can get past this, but to simply say that Jordan Poole was the only part of the problem is, to me, a bit of an oversimplification.
Gotcha. And listen, like Jordan Poole, I think he was scapegoated. Like he was the guy that got blamed for everything, and he wasn't the problem. There was a lot of problems here. This guy didn't know his role on the team last year. And Steve Kerr, like we thought he had a difficult task last season handling and navigating this punch in that locker room. He's going to have a difficult one coming up this year. This is going to be a very interesting season. And listen, I don't know if he's going to get paid. We'll get into that at some point in the show. Steve Kerr, 1 year left on his deal, is going to be going into a lame duck season. Joe Lacob seems like the owner that might, let him play out on this one. It didn't end well last season. You're coming off a championship, and you don't even get to the conference finals. You lose to a rookie head coach in Darvin Ham and the Los Angeles Lakers. So that's another interesting storyline here. But as it pertains to Draymond Green, it feels like overall, though, you had to keep Draymond over Jordan Poole, right? Like, he won 4 rings with the franchise. He's a Hall of Fame guy. He's potentially a statue guy. He's part of the big three, the core three with him, Clay, and Steph. You had to keep this guy. Now, you got him. Is this a team you feel comfortable with? As currently stated, now they could add someone, a Saric, what have you. A lot of people want him. You want a name. I get it. But does this team, as currently constructed, if you're a Denver Nuggets fan, are you scared of this team? Are you scared of it? If you're a Lakers fan?
If you're the Denver Nuggets, you're not scared of anyone.
Anyone.
Yeah, including the Lakers, including anyone. Like you put Damian Lillard on the Heat, you're not afraid of them. If Boston figures its stuff out, you're not afraid of them.
You think the Nuggets are a tier above, at least a tier above everyone else in the West?
Yeah, and they should feel that way. They're the reigning champs.
Okay.
And they also have a brighter future ahead of them than some of the other groups.
Not to cut you off, Evan, but I would say a lot of Warriors fans feel like the Lakers are just a bad matchup. If they had played any other team, for whatever reason, LeBron, AD, they just give him fits. Staples Center, formerly whatever, crypto, whatever you call it, now it's going to change into another name, down in Los Angeles, has given Steph fits. They're just saying that was a bad matchup. We would have matched up well against the Nuggets. We feel like Draymond could guard Jokic at a high level. Murray, we put Wiggins on him. That could happen. I feel like a lot of Warriors fans feel, I want to get your thought on this because you are a Warriors fan, but you're also objective and you're a professional, so you can cover this team on both lenses. Do you feel like the Warriors match up well against the Nuggets more so than a team like the Lakers did who got swept last year?
I mean, I think the Warriors, and this is why they've leaned into the signings that they've made, the trade, of course, that they made, is I do think that they want to kind of change the way that they approach next season. And that is, the Warriors have always been known for, motion offense, getting up and down the court, transition, being able to move quickly, move without the ball. Not that that's going to stop next season, but I think the reason why you bring in a Chris Paul and now, as of yesterday, a Corey Joseph is not to stop the game or slow it down, but to create less havoc for yourself. Draymond Green is a big part of that and a part of the reason why the Warriors are turnover prone. But in the non-Steph minutes, how can you make sure that your floor is raised above where it was last season? That, to me, involves veterans. It involves people with playoff experience. And Chris Paul, along with Corey Joseph, even Dario Saric, who's a high probability for them to sign, not official, of course, leads into that. So I think the Warriors are leaning into, all right, yes, we might not be a perfect matchup for the Denver Nuggets or the Los Angeles Lakers, I think have had a really good offseason. But how can we essentially evolve? How can we take what we do best, dumb it down so that we can maximize the efficiency of the players on our roster? And I think they've done that this offseason with their moves. It's obviously going to come down to execution and how they come out and play next year. But Spadone, I mean, I don't know. Do you feel like this Warriors team is better than it was last season? Like, that's the question they're trying to wrestle with. And I feel like they are, even if it's marginal.
Yes.
They are a better team.
Yes. It's overall the pool for CP3 deal. It was Howard Beckon, who covers the league, who's been doing it for a number of years. Great. He covers the league now for GQ. He was like, I think it was a net positive overall. And I think I'm with him as far as CP3 for Jordan Poole. Now, we value this term, and we keep hearing it when it comes to this Warriors team. We've heard it for the last decade because that's just what they're associated with. IQ, right? Now, what does that mean? Is that knowing your role? Is that knowing when not to turn the ball over, the smart play, if you will? There's whole different variations of it, but IQ is what they are prioritizing here because that's what CP3 gives you more than anything else over Jordan Poole. And all due respect to Jordan Poole, he's a young player. He may work itself out and stuff, but he was not a quote-unquote high IQ player. A lot of sloppy turnovers, looked unsure of himself at times. Now, as part of that from the coaching staff, sure. But you bring in a guy like CP3, who's been around all the different coaching staffs, who's been around the league, he's a future Hall of Famer. We get all that. But you bring in him in, and you bring in a Corey Joseph, you bring in all these guys, you're trying to prioritize handling the rock. I don't want to turn the ball over in crucial situations. Don't beat yourselves. In the past, they got away with it, Evan, because they were so freaking good and so light years ahead of the league. They can get rid of, all these sloppy turnovers. I think of Steph, the last image I have in 2016. Remember doing that silly behind the back pass turnover, all Cavs win Oracle. We get all that, Cleveland. This is for you. But this team is in a spot where they can't be sloppy anymore. You look at the Nuggets, this is the first time in the Golden State Warriors Steve Kerr era, the Warriors are truly vulnerable. Now you can go back, Spadoni, they were hurt. They were vulnerable in 2019. They didn't have guys in 2020. I was like, yeah, but they had injury excuses then. They didn't have Klay Thompson. So you can say, you know what? We're not truly contending. We'll draft James Wiseman. We'll draft some of these guys. And eventually we'll get back to where they're. They won a chip and they were back at the mountaintop. Now they got beat fair and square prior to the Western Conference, prior to the NBA Finals, a spot they haven't been in under Steve Kerr. So this is the first time in his era, in this Steve Kerr era, they feel truly vulnerable. And it's going to be interesting to see how Steve Kerr kind of mixes and matches all these guys going forward. But again, it all goes back to IQ. And good morning to all of you on Twitch and YouTube right now. Good morning to all of you on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. And it is Trinidadians I'm seeing here from the 510. Not toboggans. Is that something you go in the snow, a toboggan or something like that?
Something like that. Hey, I'll take your word for it. Text line. Also from the 650 asking for your grade so far from Mike Dunleavy in free agency. To me, Spadone, I would lean towards either a B- or a B. I don't think it's been ultimately incredible.
C+ maybe. Yeah.
But I also don't think it's been a complete dumpster fire. And if you're going to move Jordan Poole, you had better not flounder in free agency. I don't think they've done that yet. But I liked your point about I guess the feeling that the Warriors can't play the way that they used to. And to me, it is, yes, as much about how much they turn over the ball. But I think any time that you run up possessions at the rate that they do, you're going to turn over the basketball. You're going to be a top 5 turnover team. That's just a product of the system. But where they've been killed, and especially last year in the postseason, to me, was you don't have that margin for error on offense because your defense has taken steps back. Yeah. And that is one area I still am concerned about moving into next season. Now, you retain your defensive identity, the core of your team in Draymond Green. He was your best defensive player last year, and he can be next season and hopefully for the foreseeable future. But did you get better defensively with Chris Paul instead of Jordan Poole? Probably a little bit. Corey Joseph is obviously not going to be a huge part defensively, but what's the next guy you bring in? Because Dario Saric doesn't play a whole lot of defense, Is it Gary Payton II stepping up? You lost Dante DiVincenzo, who I'm sure we're going to talk about. They didn't necessarily, to me, get better wholly defensively. They might have gotten more intelligent, or the IQ that we're talking about. But to me, I do wonder how this Warriors team is going to prevent other teams from getting to the basket, getting inside, because right now their most formidable force is Draymond Green. And we saw last year that on the inside against a guy like Anthony Davis, against potentially a guy like Nikola Jokic, there are people in the West that are going to give them trouble down low. And that, to me, didn't change a whole lot, or hasn't changed so far in free agency.
It's a good point, and I think the argument to that would be, Jokic and AD, you let them get theirs, but it's the other guys, right? It's the Lonnie Walkers getting theirs. It's the Austin Reeves. It's letting these other guys around, and let's face it, like, Steph was getting attacked last year. Clay was getting attacked last year, and that's a problem because, listen, Steph was never going to be that guy defensively. He's turned himself into at least an average defender at times, which is pretty good from where he was, which is awful, like Jordan Poole level when he first came into the league. But Klay Thompson, he used to be the number one stopper for other teams. Like, he used to be that dude. And stop maybe is strong, but you could switch him onto a LeBron, right? Onto a Kyrie. He was that guy. Now it's Wiggins. But again, Wiggins missing 2 months. He was compromised towards the end there. LeBron kept going at him in that Game 6 in the Western Conference semis, and that was all she wrote. So I guess if you had Wiggins slide into that role instead of Klay, maybe you feel a little bit better. But at the same time, if Klay's in the closing lineup, he's going to start getting attacked. Like, you think of these guys like Jamal Murray, he's going to start getting that switch, and he's going to find it onto a Steph, onto a Klay, and it's going to be pretty dangerous and taxing. And Tamir is on YouTube, and good morning to all of you on Twitch and YouTube. Tamir T, why would you trade the only athletic dudes on your team? We signed older and slower players. To his point, obviously getting rid of Jordan Poole. But listen, Jordan Poole, he wasn't giving you anything defensively anyways.